Welcome to the weekly wrap only on Ken's 5 Plus. I'm your host, Audrey Castellano. Let's get you up to date on some of the biggest stories of the week. At number 5 in our countdown, new video shows the arrest of former Dallas Cowboy quarterback Tony Romo. He was arrested in Milwaukee last week on suspicion of operating a vehicle while intoxicated. Romo was then taken to the police station for a field sobriety test. Police say Romo struggled with instructions, refused a breathalyzer, and asked for a lawyer. Romo is due back in court in September. At number 4 in our countdown, Crystal City is still recovering from the devastating July floods this year and have been hit with another blow to their community. Monday night, a lot of people watched as the Crystal City ballroom burned down just after 10 Monday night. Videos of the fire started circulating on social media. We don't know yet what started that fire. The state fire marshal's office is investigating. Many in the town use the ballroom for quinceañeras, weddings, or other big life events. At number 3 in our countdown, an update on that foodborne illness that has sickened more than 4,000 people across the U.S. At least 300 have ended up in hospitals. A new CBS News poll finds 40% of Americans say they are buying or eating less produce, and 47% say they have little or no confidence in the FDA to deal with the outbreak. Taylor Farms, a company whose produce is at the center of this investigation into the outbreak, says the safety of their food is paramount. They add the company is confident in its food safety system and will be transparent as more information becomes available. At some point in our lives, close to 1 in 10 of us will experience some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder. As Ken's 5's Jeremy Baker reports in today's Healthy Essay, PTSD doesn't have to ruin your life. It can be managed so you can go on living.
When people hear the term PTSD, they often associate it with military experience, but there are many other types of traumatic experiences that can lead to PTSD, including weather disasters, car accidents, violent abuse, and medical emergencies, or the loss of a loved one.
Some people may have very serious injuries, some people may die, and those experiences are often traumatic events that could haunt a person, may develop PTSD.
Some of the common signs and symptoms people with PTSD should be aware of include intrusive thoughts, flashbacks or nightmares, avoidance of trauma reminders, anxiety or feeling on edge, and changes in mood or sleep.
People start to avoid activities in their life, and then that obviously has an impact on relationships, on a marital relationship, on a relationship with your children.
Battling the stigma associated with the condition is a tough fight that Dr. Peterson says needs to be overcome.
There is considerable stigma, not just in the military. There's also a stigma with any mental health condition. People feel like they should be able to handle whatever life brings their way.
Dr. Peterson says there is hope for those with PTSD and it can be treated.
The goal is to get to the point where they can talk about it, they can think about it, and it's a memory. It's a historical event that's occurred, but it's not triggering off re-experiencing symptoms almost like it happened yesterday.
To learn more about PTSD and clinical trials for those suffering from PTSD, just head to this story on kens5.com. In the studio, Jeremy Baker, Ken's 5.
All right, the weekly wrap is back after this quick break. I'm Audrey Castellano, your morning anchor at Ken's 5. San Antonio has been a part of my story for as long as I can remember. It's where my family found its rhythm, where I'm proud to give back by working with our local nonprofits, because investing in our community is what keeps San Antonio strong. From sunrise to sundown, our city keeps moving. So when news moves fast, you need a team that moves with you. Make the move to San Antonio's #1 streaming newscast. Watch anytime, anywhere, weekdays 4:30 to 9 on Ken's 5.
I'm Henry Ramos, your anchor at Ken's 5. San Antonio's been home for nearly a decade, so I don't just report about our community, I belong to it. That is why we care so deeply about getting it right. And when local journalism is done right, it doesn't sit still, it moves. It moves us to act, it moves us forward, and it can even move our hearts. And at Ken's 5, we are here for all of it. These are the stories that move San Antonio.
I'm Sarah Duran, your morning traffic anchor at Ken's 5. Mornings start with strong coffee, good breakfast tacos, and a race to beat traffic on I-35. Born and raised here, I'm a proud graduate of Marshall High School. This is my home, so I know these roads and the best ways around them. From the rush on 410 to the backups along 1604, I've got your commute covered. Because when your mornings are on the move, so are we. Make the move to San Antonio's #1 streaming newscast. Watch anytime, anywhere, weekdays 4:30 to 9 on KENS 5.
Welcome back. At number 2 at our countdown, new video is giving us a look at powerful winds that tore through San Antonio's Dignity Hill neighborhood July 15th. That's the same day an EF1 tornado hit the rim. So this all happened just after 5 that morning. The damage stretched across several blocks, ripping the roof off of one home, toppling signs and shattering windows and knocking down the brick facade of a shop. Despite all the damage, no one was hurt. There was also an EF0 tornado that touched down in China Grove. We've learned that from the National Weather Service. And a San Antonio man was forced to go to eviction court after his landlord claimed he hadn't paid rent. The case was then paused because the man did pay, but it was still a stressful experience. Call KENS reporter Andrew Moore spoke to Lone Star Legal Aid to find out what other tenants need to know in this situation.
Evictions are going to be stressful for anybody, but many times it's worse for a tenant because there are things about evictions and eviction court they simply don't know about. So KENS 5 spoke to Lone Star Legal Aid attorney Kimberly DK to find out what misconceptions you need to avoid.
Whether you believe you're withholding it for a reason or not, failure to pay rent can almost immediately take you to court for non-payment.
Misconception number 1 is I don't have to pay rent if my landlord isn't fixing things. This is not true. In reality, if you just don't pay rent, you will lose your rights as a tenant, and the judge will almost always rule against you.
The case is more than likely going to move forward.
There is a process to deduct rent to fix issues yourself, but it requires you to notify your landlord multiple times beforehand. Misconception number 2 is you can't be evicted for not paying rent if you only owe late fees or utilities. This is also not true.
If your lease allows that, any payment you made can first be put towards back due charges.
DK says landlords can often decide how to apply your rent payments and can apply them to utilities or late fees and then claim you owe rent if you have any balance still due. So if a landlord won't negotiate a high utility bill, DK says you must pay it first and then sue to get the money back.
Sadly, for the most part, you will have to pay it and then get an attorney if it seems like your landlord isn't willing to work with you.
Misconception number 3 is you don't need to show up to eviction court if you pay before the court date. Again, this is also not true. Once the eviction case has been filed, you can still get evicted if it goes forward and you don't show up. DK says you need to be there and you must have proof.
If you have a zero balance by the time you go to court, you would want to bring that in front of the judge as your defense.
And finally, if you are facing eviction, reach out to Lone Star Legal Aid or other resources as soon as possible. DK says there are other technicalities that can help you depending on the situation, but you won't know if you don't ask.
Definitely reach out to an attorney to see if there's something they can help you with.
And finally, if you do have to go to court, DK says make sure you bring your evidence on paper or at least email it to the court so the judge has an easy time reviewing that as they go over your case. For Call KENS, Andrew Moore, KENS 5.
Really good tips there for renters. All right, the weekly wrap back after this.
I'm Barry Davis, your morning news anchor at KENS 5. San Antonio's been my home for 23 years. It's where I met my wife, raising my kids, built a life I'm proud of. This city means everything to me. That's why I'm proud to be a part of a team that's committed to keeping you informed and connected. Because when news moves fast, you need a team that moves with you. Make the move to San Antonio's #1 streaming newscast. Watch anytime, anywhere, weekdays 4:30 to 9 on KENS 5.
I'm Isis Romero, anchor at KENS 5. San Antonio has been home for more than a decade. I don't just report about our community, I belong to it. That's why we care so deeply about getting it right. And when local journalism is done right, it doesn't sit still, it moves. It moves us to act, it moves us forward, and it can even move our hearts. And at KENS 5, we're here for all of it. These are the stories that move San Antonio.
I'm Paul Morellis, your morning meteorologist at KENS 5. You know, I've called San Antonio home for 23 years. When I'm not tracking storms, you'll probably find me on the Canyon Springs golf course or spending time with the family. I'm here to keep you prepared, whether it's heavy rain or hail downtown or gusty winds in New Braunfels. Whatever the weather brings, you'll know what to expect before you walk out the door. Because weather never stops, and neither do we. Make the move to San Antonio's #1 streaming newscast. Watch anytime, anywhere, weekdays 4:30 to 9 on KENS 5.
Welcome back. For some students, heading back to school is exciting. For others, it can be pretty stressful. One San Antonio man knows that firsthand. He says a program that started with a simple conversation in high school changed the direction of his life. Now he's helping the next generation through communities and schools and hoping that others will pitch in through the Stuff the Bus campaign. KENS 5's Roxy Van Rooten has his story.
I grew up wanting to help people always.
Deshaun had just moved to San Antonio, and he says he didn't really know anyone, and most days he ate lunch by himself, until a site coordinator kept checking in.
She invited me in for lunches, and she would talk to me about just normal everyday stuff, and then I started opening up more, and it was really just great to have somebody there and actually know that they care about you.
That relationship did more than help him through high school. It gave him a career goal.
She told me that there's not a lot of males in communities and schools, and it really inspired me to be like, I could do this. This is something I could do. And that's just my dream right there, and it's the only dream I have, is to work with communities and schools.
Now that dream is becoming a reality. Deshaun was recently hired as an intern and will begin working as a site coordinator next month.
This is basically my whole future. I'm going to college for the bachelor's degree just to work with them right now, and having this internship will help me get this job so much, and I've never been more grateful for anything.
And as families get ready for another school year, he says even a small donation can help a student start the year with what they need.
Parents really struggle just putting kids in schools by themselves, and the little help with supplies is more than enough, and anybody could do it.
And if you're thinking about donating, he says you don't have to spend a lot to make a difference.
It's a great idea, it's a great cause, and there's so many things you could do to help, but there's just little things like donating pencils really makes a big difference.
Roxy Van Rooten, KENS 5.
All right, and at #1 in our countdown, folks in the Hill Country are still recovering from the floods that happened 2 weeks ago. But leaders are saying less donations and even volunteers are coming to help this year compared to last year. Kerr County officials are asking President Trump to sign a major disaster declaration to get more federal support. Kerr County Commissioner Rich Paces says emergency declaration funding is capped at $5 million for an urgent crisis like this. Paces says major disaster declarations cover severe natural events like hurricanes and floods and bring in more FEMA aid. Senator John Cornyn and Ted Cruz even wrote to President Trump this month to try to get that funding. The letter, signed last Tuesday, states the recovery costs across the state are estimated at more than $480 million. We'll keep you up to date on that story, but thanks for joining us for this week's episode of the Weekly Wrap, only on KENS 5 Plus. Be sure to join us next week. We'll see you then. Bye, guys.